Welcome to Real Talk, where we dive into the raw, engaging, authentic, and lived experiences that inspire and inform. I'm Michelle Badusky, your host, and I believe that the hardest conversations to have are the ones we need the most. This is a safe space for real talk that challenges perspectives, sparks growth, and pushes boundaries. No filters, no fluff, just real talk. Are you ready? Let's dive in. Hey everyone, it is Michelle Badusky here. Now, there have been a lot of conversations on my Facebook and my Instagram page about the fact that I homeschool, and it's true. So I thought I'd dedicate this week's podcast to homeschooling because there's a lot of us who do it, and there's a lot of people who don't necessarily understand what exactly it is. So let me get started. In 2020, when the world shut down and my kids' schools shut down, I had a kid in kindergarten, a kid in grade 3, and a kid in grade 9. And suddenly they were all home full time. Now, like many of you, I thought, how long could this COVID thing really last anyways, right? So we spent the first couple weeks like it was a vacation. We stayed in our pajamas all day, we ate chips and dip, and we watched Netflix. And then slowly I started realizing that, maybe this was going to take a little bit longer than we thought. And the kids started getting packages from their school, and the one in grade 9 started doing some online classes, but there wasn't a really lot going on. And the packages they got, I sat down and did, and we'd go through them in like an hour, and my grade 9 student was, getting a little bit frustrated with what's going on. And it wasn't enough to kill time. It wasn't enough to keep them busy, keep them occupied, and I wanted to do more. So I started supplementing what the school was sending them with my own work. I would come up with assignments, I'd come up with projects, and we would just have fun doing it. Now, of course, I was also home full-time for the first time in my life because my businesses got shut down. So I had plenty of time. Now, fast forward to September of 2020. We had been doing this for months already, and it had become quite just the routine. When summer hit, we live in a small town. COVID was still going on. There was nowhere to go and not much to do anyways. So we just kept schooling. And even though I wasn't getting anything from the schools themselves, we just kept doing what we had been doing, and we were enjoying ourselves. So when September hit and school started opening up, I was a little concerned because vaccines hadn't been available yet. And my youngest, who was in kindergarten or who would be going into grade 1, has asthma. And not just has asthma, but was actually hospitalized in the fall of 2019 for walking pneumonia because of his asthma. So I was a little concerned about sending him back to public school in grade 1. I know there was a mask mandate and social distancing in school, but this was my kid. And I was worried that if he got COVID, that it would be extremely serious. So we decided as a family that we were going to keep him and my other elementary school kid, who was going into grade 4, home and continue to homeschool them, this time real homeschool. And I'll explain that in a minute. My oldest living at home at the time, was going into grade 10. So we sat down with them and talked about it and said, what do you want to do? Do you want to go back to public school, or do you want to continue to do what we've been doing? And I'll officially pull you from the public school system. And for the next year, until we figure out this COVID thing, we'll homeschool. And they decided that they wanted to stay home. Now, we're going to hear from them in just a little bit, and they're going to explain that decision on their own, because now they've actually just completed their 3rd year of university on the dean's list at Brandon University. But let's quickly go back. So the difference between schooling at home, like the stuff that you were doing during COVID when the teachers were sending packages and stuff, and homeschooling is like night and day. So when you homeschool, you actually pull your kids from the public system. You notify them that you are going to be homeschooled, so they're not registered in any school. You don't get any of the same supports or help that students in the public school get. We don't get the same resources. We don't get EAs. We don't get, all of the different things that happen in the public school system. That doesn't happen. We are no longer associated with public school. That means we also don't get any curriculum support. So we don't get packages of assignments. We don't have anyone telling us what to do, what to study, and how to do it. We are literally on our own. What we do is send in a report every September telling the Manitoba Education Homeschooling office what we plan to do for each student in every grade and every subject. So I send out this report and say, all right, for Ivan in grade 5, this is what we're going to be doing for science and math, and I plan it out. And there's a lot of online resources. I work really closely with my kids to tailor what they're studying with their interest. Doesn't mean they don't have to do things they're not interested in. It just means I try to tailor things to them. So if we're reading a novel, I find novels that they're excited about and interested in. Or, we do a lot of hands-on math work with mental multiplication and mental math, where we're converting fractions when we're baking. And, we do a lot of integrations like that. And I do use online resources. So there's a lot of free and a lot of paid resources that we can get online for their subjects, for their assignments, and I create my own. Now, every single year since 2020 and since we had that conversation, I sat down with my kids and asked them, do you want to go back to public school? And every single year, without fail, they say no. So this year, we're just finishing up. It is April 29th, so we're, this school year, Roman is finishing up grade 5. Ivan is finishing up grade 8. And as I mentioned, Sarah is now finished their 3rd year of Brandon University as a Dean's List student. I'm super proud of all 3 of them. But homeschooling is different. So, for example, when Sarah finished grade 12, they don't get a high school diploma because they don't graduate from a high school. What we do get is a report from the homeschooling office saying that they have completed grade 12. And that's based on the reports. So you remember what I said? I send this plan in every September saying what we're going to do. I also send reports in December and in June for each of the kids saying what we did and what we accomplished. So there is some monitoring, but there's no testing, there's no academic reviews, there's no exams. I keep track of what they've done and what they're going to do. And when Sarah was looking at going to university, we actually contacted the university and some different programs that they were interested in, and I looked at the entrance requirements. So Sarah was actually going in and is working on a degree in music with a major in music and a minor in history, and didn't need any specific math or science prerequisites. If they did, I might have had to enroll them in like a single high school course so they could get that credit to prove that they've done, chemistry 400 or whatever it is. But they didn't need that for what they were going to study in the School of Music. So I had to send in a report of what they had accomplished. And part of Sarah's high school was to create a portfolio of the work that they had done. Some writing assignments, some different, and just keep a portfolio. And Ivan's going to be starting to do that too, so that when they're finished high school, they can show what they've accomplished. Instead of just holding up a high school diploma, they can say, here, look at what I've done. Look what I can do. Here are some of my accomplishments. So that's kind of how that aspect works. But one of the things I found really interesting is that when we decided to homeschool, there's a lot of, maybe stigma is not quite the right word, but there's a lot of confusion about what homeschooling is. So a lot of people assume that, and maybe in some other provinces it's different, but here in Manitoba, a lot of people assume that we still get like packages from the school and we're just doing schoolwork at home. And that's not it at all. I handle all of the kids' curriculum. I handle all of their assignments, and we actually school all year long. We don't break for like spring break or summer because we don't follow the same schedule as a public school. And some people find that really confusing, especially when I'm working Monday to Friday full time. And they're like, how can you be working full time and still homeschooling? And that's because there's this idea in our head that education for students and for kids only takes place Monday to Friday from like 8:30 till 3:30, or 9 till 3:30 or whatever the hell time school is, because I don't even know anymore, and that you don't do school in the summer. Like, we're kind of brainwashed into this fact that that's the only time that learning occurs. And in our family, that's not true. We are constantly learning. We work our family around what can we learn from this. So we do school lessons on the weekends. We do school lessons in the evenings. We might travel in the winter, and the kids will get hands-on geography and history lessons. Last night was election night in Canada, so 11 o'clock at night, that's where we were, staying up late, talking about the election, talking about the different types of government, party systems, all of that type of thing. That's education. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're always sitting behind a desk doing whatever's in front of them, with paper and pencil. So it's really flexible for us. And I really love it because we get to go down these rabbit holes. It's like, oh, here's a question. Well, let's find out about that. And I learn along with them because kids are so inquisitive. They want to learn. They're like sponges. And because I'm kind of controlling their curriculum, I'm like, you know what? Let's do an assignment on that. Let's do a research project on that. How about we do a science experiment on that? And we can work it into what they're already learning. And so it's a lot of fun. Now, I am blessed because I am physically, mentally able to homeschool my kids. We have some financial freedom because homeschooling is not cheap. Nobody pays us to homeschool. We don't get like a grant from the government. We don't even get tax credits. We still pay school taxes. So everything that we do in school, so whether it's a subscription to an online service, paper, pen, craft supplies, science experiments, that all comes out of our own pocket. And I tend to find, I love tech. So, we do a lot of really cool things. And we're able to support that. That doesn't mean you have to have a lot of money to homeschool. It just means, for me, it makes it easier when I know I can just go out and buy the supports and the stuff that I need. The other thing is that I have two boys that are really close in age. The boys are only 2 years apart, and they're the best of friends. So that makes it easier that they like being together, and we do a lot of things together. Currently, we are reading a novel. I'm actually reading it to them because the language is a little heavy, and we're reading The Lord of the Flies. What I love about that is we do it as a family. So even, my husband and my oldest sit in and we read a chapter, and I can stop when there's a word that they don't understand. Say, do you know what this means? What do you think he meant by that? And we could talk about it as we go along, which helps them with their understanding, and it helps them visualize. And then I follow up with chapter questions, just like you would in school, except I have different questions for the one in grade 5 than I do for the one in grade 8. They're listening and enjoying the same book, and we work it into different things, but they're at different levels. Their comprehension is different. Their language levels are different. So I can customize it, and yet they're doing it together. My grade 5 student is a super math prodigy, not because he's brilliant, although I think he is. I think they're all absolutely brilliant because, I'm their mom, but because he wanted to do what his older brother did. So when he came home, he'd only ever been in public school for 6 months in kindergarten. He didn't know how to read when COVID hit. And he saw the things I was doing with his older brother who was in grade 3, and he wanted to do them too. And a lot of that was math. And there's no grade level holding him back. So it was like, oh, you want to learn how to do multiplication like your brother is? Let me show you. Do you want to learn long division? Let me show you how to do that. And we would play mental math games and, even things like Yahtzee. And there's so much fun you can have learning. And I hope, and we're going to hear from them, I hope that I'm inspiring my kids to love learning and understand that learning isn't something you do on a set schedule in a set place. It's something that is with you everywhere you go. And that's kind of, my take on homeschooling. I know a lot of families out there homeschool for religious reasons. They homeschool for political reasons. We're not like that. We homeschool because we started over COVID and found that as a family, it works for us. and we absolutely love it. Now, the biggest question that I get is, what about socialization? Well, I think this is a funny question because I don't view public school as socialization. I see it as forced association. You're forced to be in a room with people for no other reason than you have to be in a room with people. And there's a lot of issues in public schools. Classrooms are overcrowded, teachers are overworked, they are under resourced. There's issues with bullying and drama. I don't have any of that. I have two boys that sometimes want to kill each other, but other than that, that's pretty easy to handle. When it comes to socialization with other kids, there's this idea that homeschooled kids never see anybody else, and that's just not true. My boys, I will admit that while I've been going through cancer treatments, we haven't been as outgoing as normal. So don't let the last few months or last 8 months dictate. But normally, my boys are involved in twice a week athletics. They go to jujitsu. They're with other kids their age. They take private music lessons. They have groups that they belong to. They go to summer camps. They go to day camps. They go to overnight camp, and they're always outside in the summer and fall. So there's a lot of socialization, and they're learning a lot of social skills. But we also work that into our curriculum. I'm teaching them how to self regulate. I'm teaching them time management. I'm teaching them communication skills, de escalation, and conflict resolution skills. That's part of what I'm working with them at home. These are the things that we can do because I don't have to worry about having 30 kids at different levels with different abilities and different behavioral issues to try to teach a set curriculum like public school teachers do. And I have all the respect in the world for public school teachers. Absolutely they're doing a job I could never do myself. I don't homeschool because I think I'm a better teacher than public teachers. I think that I can do a better job teaching my children than a group setting would do for them. Not because public teachers are bad or anything else, but because these are my kids and I can focus on them one on one. Can you imagine? I can sit down one on one. If Ivan is struggling with a math concept, I can sit down one on one for half an hour. Boom, he's got it. We move on. Public school teachers can't do that. There's no way they can do what I can do as a one on one parent homeschooling my children. And I can't expect them to. So I don't homeschool because I have no respect for public school. I have all the respect in the world for the teachers. I think our public school system needs some work. And it's not the reason I pulled my kids out of school. I just pulled them out because we started and loved it and just haven't stopped. So that's my perspective as a homeschooling mom. Now, let's hear from the kids. So I would love to introduce Mr. Roman Badusky, who is obviously a part of our homeschooling family. He is my baby. He's my fourth born, 11 years old. And how long have you been homeschooling?
5 years. Wait, yeah, 5 years.
Yeah. So when did you start homeschooling?
Kindergarten. I was in for 6 months and homeschooled.
And do you remember why we started homeschooling?
Yes, I do. Because of COVID. And because of my asthma, it was a bit dangerous to COVID. Asthma just makes everything like a cold last a week, and it's really annoying.
Okay.
Sometimes I get coughs, but not often.
Not often. You're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
So first of all, I got to ask you this before we start talking about homeschooling. Why are you in your pajamas?
Because we get to wear pajamas all day.
That's right.
And you're comfy.
You wear pajamas to school a lot because you don't actually have to leave the house. And today was kind of cold and miserable, so there's no playtime outside.
Exactly.
So,
unlike the weekend.
I've already talked to my listeners about why, as a parent, we decided to homeschool through COVID. But then I talked about when schools reopened, and I don't know if you remember this because you were really little, but do you remember when we sat you, your brother, and Sarah down and asked whether or not you wanted to go back to public school? We've done that a couple times.
Oh yeah, a few times, like every year.
And
but no, I don't remember with Sarah.
But do you remember what your decision was? Obviously, but tell us about it.
Well, we chose no, because when you do homeschooling, or at least how we're doing it, I'm doing grade 5, right? But I do math on my computer or laptop, and I'm doing grade 7 math. So if I went back for the year, then I'd kind of just know everything. It'd be simple, and I wouldn't learn. I'd just get dumber, because if I kept doing it, I would learn more.
Okay, so you don't go to public school because you're too far ahead and you don't want to get dumber. Makes sense. Now, what's your favorite thing about homeschooling?
We get the mornings off. And schoolwork's like fast to do. You do like a math lesson that takes like an hour and a half tops, and that's like it. And then we have science, writing, and that only really takes like maybe 3 hours, not even sometimes. So we can like play the whole morning, do schoolwork in the afternoon, play the rest of the afternoon, eat great meals, and yeah.
So I'm taking it that you like homeschooling?
Oh yeah, quite a lot.
So what's the worst part? Because it's not all perfect.
Oh yeah, no social life whatsoever. Whatsoever. Okay, maybe not whatsoever, because I do have a bit, because mini U camp, day camp here in Rivers. So we do have a bit of a social life, but since we don't go to school, we can't really like connect with them often. It's really just in the summer when we get to go to the park because summer break.
That's true, because when you are playing, like you said, you play in the morning and everybody else is in school, so that's kind of tough, right?
Yeah, so if I can like go over there, but then they're playing, I'm not allowed in, obviously. It's like I can't, but in summer I can go play. There's kids there, then yeah, and they're my friends, and that's good. But otherwise, I can't really play with my friends.
So when you say go there, you mean the schoolyard, because the playground for the elementary is literally across the street for us.
It is. It's like it's like 50 feet away, maybe not even. Like it's close.
So that's tough on you. So if someone was listening to this and they were worried that in grade 5 that somehow you weren't getting, I don't know, what would you tell people when they say homeschooling? Yay or nay? Would you recommend it? Do you like it? What are your thoughts?
Honestly, I'm playing VR a lot, and I have heard a lot of people, sometimes they talk about school, and if so, then sometimes I say that I'm homeschooled, sometimes not, and then they're like, "What? Are you homeschooled? Like that's bad." And it's like, no, it's not. Like it's great. And then I tell them that I get like mornings off and I have like 3 hours of school, and they're like, "Holy!"
Well, and for those that are listening, we also don't like take weekends and stuff off, right? Like we'll do schoolwork in the evenings, and
Sunday.
I don't want anyone listening thinking that you don't do anything.
No, like sometimes we do. Sometimes.
All right. So, what do you think? Come September, are you ready to go back to public school, grade 6?
No, definitely not.
No?
No, probably not until I have to go to college or university.
So what do you want to be when you grow up? What are your plans?
I don't know. I think I want to be an astronomer.
An astronomer. That's pretty cool. So you like math and science?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So, last question. Okay. What do you think of your teacher?
She's great.
I am. Yeah. I gotta admit. Welcome, Serafina, to Real Talk, where we're talking about homeschooling today. So to those of you who are listening, this is Serafina. Sarah is my 19-year-old who has been homeschooling since grade 9. So I'm curious. So you're not in grade 9 anymore. I've already said that you are just finished third year university, Dean's List, Brandon University. You've made Dean's List all 3 years. You actually finished high school a year early because we were homeschooling. So before we get to that, tell me, when COVID shut down school and suddenly you were at home and we were schooling at home. So that was when I was helping you and you were still enrolled in high school. What was that like for you?
To be honest, I realized how bored I was at school. And I mean, it's not that it wasn't enough work but it was the kind of work that we were doing was just, I didn't find it very valuable or engaging. A lot of it was worksheets, a lot of it was, I mean, worksheets, really. And I mean, that's no blame to my teachers at all. They did the best they could with the resources they had. But I was bored and I started homeschooling and I realized I could take my own time with things and learn in the way that I needed to learn because I'm very good at kind of like, I don't want to say teaching myself to make what mom and dad did to help me and like I don't want to invalidate that.
Oh, not at all. But you were very self-directed.
Yes.
You really came to me and said, "This is what I want to be learning. This is what I'm interested in." And then I took that and worked, your curriculum around it, saying, "All right, let's do that."
Mm-hmm.
Before we get to some of the things you did, because I have a lot of followers that are really curious about the transition from high school to university for a homeschooled student. But when in September of 2020, when they reopened the school, I sat you guys down and said, all right, what do we want to do here? Do we, I decided that we were going to keep Roman home because he was asthmatic and no vaccines and all of that. But you were going into grade 10 and you chose to homeschool full time instead of going back to high school. Can you tell me why?
I think, well, fundamentally, just to premise everything in this interview, I love to learn. But I was thinking about it, I was comparing to what we had done as the schools were closed and then what life was like back when I was in the school. And I kind of did the whole pros and cons, pluses, minuses kind of thing in my head. And I realized that yes, I did want to go back to school. I was going to miss doing things like band, and I was also going to kind of miss the people I was going to school with and that kind of social aspect. And then I thought about it more and I realized it's like, well, I don't actually get along with a lot of people at school. It's high school, it's over dramatic, lots is going on. I don't really like the people I go to school with that much. They don't like me. And then I went back to that love of learning thing and I realized I was learning a lot more at home. I was learning a lot better and I was learning things I actually enjoyed. Not that I wasn't learning the important stuff, because yes, I hate math. I still had to learn math. But I could focus more on the aspects of history that I loved and that I was interested in. And I did my sciences and maths, but I did it in ways that interest me and were engaging to me. And that's something I could do at home, but not when I was working in a class of 25 people, right?
Well, and that is one thing I spoke about when I was talking about how I developed your curriculum. It was when I'm working one on one and I know you don't like learning in a certain way, I was able to adjust it specifically for you because you were the only one learning grade 10, 11 math and science and chemistry and had a lot of fun with that. So I am going to say this because we do have a lot of local people listening. It's not that you hated all the kids in town, right?
No, it's not that I hated all the kids in town. It's just
it was high school.
It was high school, and I think, and I'm sure, hopefully they feel the same way about me in return. It's not that I'm trying to insult them or demean them anyway, but it's like we didn't get along, but we were forced to be together since kindergarten, you know? So there's always kind of that relationship that we'll have and we'll know about, but we weren't what's best for each other in the long run, right?
So, well, you know what? Honestly, I'll say that is probably true of everybody in high school. So, you did talk about band because you were very excited to be in band in high school. So, tell me about that experience as a homeschool student.
Well, I miss playing in a band quite a bit, but then I thought about it more and I wanted to keep playing my instruments, so we rented it, and mom and dad found me I guess you found me an instructor, and I started playing over Zoom with Beth Levaya. She's an oboist from Edmonton. And I started doing one-on-one weekly Zoom lessons, and I found I really enjoyed like the solo repertoire as well, which is something I never got to do in high school band, except for one experience that I got. Mr. Wolf took me to a festival, and he played piano for me, and that was my first ever kind of solo experience. But that was the only thing, and I never got to pursue that further, and I found out that I really enjoyed that. And so I focused very heavily on that with Beth. and really honing in my oboe skills and learning how to play the instrument, because you can play it, but being taught by someone who studied it in a classical sense really changes the way you look at it and the way you play. And so I did that, and then there was this opportunity at Brandon University called Center Stage. And now this was kind of when I was finishing grade 12. And I decided that I wanted to go into music. I wanted to pursue it further. And so I went and I auditioned at the Brandon University, and then when I participated in the Center Stage opportunity. And I got to play with the band again, which was the first time I had done it in almost 2 years. And turns out I actually forgot how to do all of it. It's very different than playing solo. So I relearned how to play in a band, and I actually got accepted into the university as a music student that day when I was there for that event. One of Dr. Xander, who's an incredible performer there, she brought another student up to me and was like, "This is Serafina. You're gonna be a first year student with them next year." And I was like, "I'm gonna be a first year student? I haven't gotten my letter of acceptance, resignation, letter of acceptance yet." So she signed it because she was acting dean at that time. She signed it and handed it to me that day, and that's how I found out I was going to go into music school.
That was really exciting because you also finished high school early. Mm-hmm. Now, that was the really cool, I think, from my perspective. I want to hear from yours. It was a really cool thing that you were able to do that. And it's not that you skipped any courses or anything like that. It's just that you loved learning. We had a lot of really cool resources. You're also taking a history minor. So through high school, we focused on history. You took online courses, but we never stopped. Like we did school through summer, evenings, weekends. COVID was a long couple years, and we just kept going, and travel and all of that kind of stuff. So you were able to actually get all your coursework in, condense it, and finish high school early. So when you got that letter of acceptance, you were only 17.
Mm-hmm, exactly. I mean, the classmate I'm still friends with to this day, he's a year older than me, right? All my classmates are a year older than me in my cohort. And it was really interesting because it felt super cool to be young and to be the youngest in my grade, but also there was still the experience. It's like, you guys are more experienced than me. It's not that you know more than me, but when it comes to music, that extra year of practice, right, it definitely helps. But it was interesting graduating high school early because summer vacation, winter break weekends didn't really exist. It's not that we were forced to do school every day, all day. It was because you could do it at your own rate, meant that those kinds of days of the week, it didn't really matter when you did it. It didn't matter what time you did it. I found I liked working in afternoon and evening better, and I did some of my best work at 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, which still applies to me today because that's when I do all my studying and homework for university. Because I think high school is really strange because they have us doing 9 to 5 like we're working adults, and then I guess it's 9 to 4, 3:30. It's not really the same. But and then they send us to university when your schedule is all crazy and messed up. I have classes at 9 a.m. and then another class at 9:30 p.m. And then I'm expected to exist in the hour between.
Oh no, not exist. So did you feel like those 3 years of homeschooling where you were in charge of your own schedule, and that's one of the things that I talk about homeschooling is I never really set a schedule for any of you guys. I said, I need you to do this by this date, and how you got it done was up to you. If it didn't get done, there was consequences, but I have never in 5 years of homeschooling actually had to administer a consequence to any of you for not doing your schoolwork, which I think is amazing. So for those that, the question always comes up, it's like, well, are your kids going to be prepared for the real world, for university? Well, let me ask you, because I know this and I'm going to remind you. During your last year, or last couple of years, I think, of high school, when you were home, you actually had the ability to volunteer weekly at our local food bank because you weren't in class. And of course, private music lessons, band camps, you had summer jobs at Mini U, you did all of that. Do you feel that it helped you or hindered you when you first went into university? Or what was your experience like? Because you also moved out of the house and went into residence.
Oh yeah,
So,
that's
which is a normal university experience, but we decided that that's what you were going to do. And so at 17, you graduated a year early and moved into residence, and boom, you were
it's
gone.
just gone. I feel like I would have had a much more difficult time going into university if not if I was still in high school, not because of like only because of how strictly it's scheduled and because I would get really into that habit and then I would finish high school and I would go straight into work, which is the same kind of schedule. And then suddenly September starts and I'm not living at home and I don't have like my parents there to help me who are also following that same kind of 9 to 5 schedule. And then suddenly my classes and I like if you've ever seen a music course schedule, there you have a morning class and an evening class same day all week. It's random, it's crazy, you have long classes. And if I just suddenly started doing that and I was living at home, I don't think I would be able to manage my time well at all. And I think I would have been very, very overwhelmed. But since I was already kind of doing that routine when I was at home, it was actually weird to go work and do a 9 to 5. And then I felt more comfortable once I had gotten back to university and my schedule was all over the place. Of course, it was still some getting used to too, because like I had a schedule and I do things at different times, but not it wasn't a scheduled time, but at least it wasn't just a block of time during my day and then I go home and it's done. So,
No, that's a really good point, and I never actually thought about that. I don't know if you and I have ever talked about that.
no.
What about the socialization? So a lot of people are really concerned that homeschool kids aren't socialized. They don't spend enough time with their peers. What's your experience leaving high school to go homeschool and then move on to university?
See, it was weird going into homeschool because I had online friends at the time because it was the pandemic. Everyone was chronically online. So I had online friends who were in Winnipeg and I'd met them in real life. It's not a weird internet situation. Um, but we would communicate. So it wasn't like that lonely when I was being homeschooled. And then, of course, I was going out and I was volunteering and I had my lessons. So I was communicating with people all over the place and I was talking like I wasn't super socially isolated. I would say was more physically isolated because I spent a lot of time doing schoolwork in my room.
Well, and that I will put this out
But
there. We also live rurally. It's not
yes,
like we're in a city, so there's a little bit of social isolation just living in a
regardless.
small town. So,
And then I got to university and it was really weird because it was like I was with people who liked the exact same things as me. Because we all wanted to be there. We were all interested in music. That was a baseline. That's why we were there. So there was a common ground to talk about and get us introduced to each other. And because of that, we weren't just a bunch of people forced together like you are in high school, and everybody's very fundamentally different. It was a group of people who did have something that was fundamentally the same, and it made it super easy to communicate with people. I mean, I'm an anxious person, so it did take me a little bit to kind of open up, but I made friends in my first year who I'm still friends with today, and we all are going very separate paths in lives. And but all of them relate back to music in one way or another, and it's very interesting to like see each other in that kind of light, and I've made really, really good friends. I think it doesn't, I mean, obviously, there's situations where homeschool can make you a bit awkward, but it's not a given. It all depends on the way it's done. And if it's done properly, nothing really changes. If anything, you just know yourself better, and knowing yourself makes it easier to go out and learn about others.
well, last question, because I'm getting all teary eyed. I'm glad I'm not on camera because I'm so super proud of you. I mean, you went through all of that and just finished third year. You're majoring in music, minoring in history. You've got your whole life planned out. It's absolutely phenomenal to watch. You're super talented. And Dad and I are really, really proud of you. So, my question is for those that are like, it's not all perfect, right? Like homeschooling has challenges. Like
Oh,
what
absolutely.
did you find was the biggest challenge transitioning from high school to homeschooling?
From high school to homeschooling, it was, I need to think about that for a second. I think my biggest challenge was suddenly being at home all day with my family. There was no, and it's not saying you guys suffer in a funny way.
So your biggest challenge was your mother.
Well, a little bit, but it was just suddenly, it was like, because we were all used to having that degree of separation and then coming home. And it's not that it was a bad thing, but it was something to get used to. I found very quickly my little brothers were super annoying when I had to deal with them 24 hours a day. I love them to death, but they're still little brothers, and there's two of them. So
That's very, very true. I never thought of it like really from that perspective.
And I also found it hard to like. What I realize now is like I struggled a bit to kind of, because home was always kind of designated a relaxing space, so I got used to like it was a little hard at the beginning to get used to it also being a workspace and just having that work-life balance kind of shift in my brain. So that was difficult too.
That's a really good point, because that's something I haven't really talked a lot about, that we actually very early on kind of designated school spaces, right? This is going to be a study space. And I think it was that transition of not just like hanging out on the dining room table, but actually creating a space for studying. Kind of like I have my meditation room. You had a study space, and the boys have.
It was the pandemic when we got me a loft bed, so my desk was underneath my bed, and it was kind of separated from the rest of my room, which was nice.
And it's good for like a mental division. All right, thank you very much, Serafina. Like I said, I am so incredibly proud of you, and you made homeschooling high school very, very, very easy. Oh, wait, I got to ask you something. So one of the things that people ask is like, well, how do you graduate? Because you never got a high school diploma. You got, just an acknowledgement from a homeschooling office that you completed grade 12. And that's what we sent into the university with your portfolio and all of that. So you never got you never got to walk across stage with other high school grads, but we did have a graduation for you. Do you feel like you missed out on that?
Actually, no. I mean, I hear a lot of people don't even want to go to their grads. Some people don't even want to go to their university grad, and that's definitely a lot harder than graduating high school. I don't feel like I missed a lot. I mean, there's a party afterwards. I don't like to party. So there wasn't really much to miss.
Well, we did throw you a great graduation dinner with all the family, and we kind of partied like.
We did not.
Oh yeah, we partied hard and rock star style. I think it was all the way to like 9. Yeah. Well, I'll never forget that because it was great, and I'll eventually show some pictures, because instead of a grad gown, you chose a grad tuxedo and looked absolutely fantastic. And we had an incredible photo shoot, incredible dinner. You still got to wear the cap. I actually forced you to wear the gown.
Oh yeah, there's people that don't want to attend their own grad.
Yeah, I forced you, so that was the one big thing. But thank you.
You're welcome.
For Ivan's first solo violin recital, he was a little nervous, so Sarah helped him out. I hope we were able to answer most of your questions about homeschooling. Like I said, Roman has been homeschooling since kindergarten, now in grade 5. Sarah started homeschooling in grade 9, finished high school a year early, and now they just completed their 3rd year of university at Brandon U on the Dean's List. Now there's a third homeschooling Badusky kid, and that's Ivan, who is now 13 and just finishing grade 8. Ivan didn't want to appear on camera, and that's okay. I'm not going to force him. I did ask him, however, what the best part of homeschooling is, and he said the schedule. That, it's really cool to not have to just be there all day every day, because he found school, like getting up in the morning, getting to school and being there, he found it really stressful, and now he's able to work when it works with him. So he's one of those kids like Sarah that doesn't start doing schoolwork until 1 o'clock in the afternoon, but might be working into the evening to finish his schoolwork. I did ask him what his least favorite part of homeschooling was, and he said, the work's much harder. Apparently, his teacher is a monster. Go figure. If you have any more questions about homeschooling here in Manitoba, what that's like, or anything else, throw your comments in. Let me know. Happy to answer what I know, and if I don't know, I'll find out. So until next time, this is Michelle Badusky, keeping it real. That's it for this episode of Real Talk, where we tackled the hardest conversations because they're the ones we need the most. I can't wait to hear your thoughts and opinions. Let's keep the conversation going. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Blue Sky, or connect with me on LinkedIn. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until next time, stay real, stay engaged, and keep living your authentic truth.